passe super, l'artiste, super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! Vi i semifinale igjen!
The preliminary round is done and dusted, and the handball hour is back to bring you sort of a recap of everything that we've witnessed so far. There's been a lot of games. I don't think between three of us we've seen all of them, but we've seen a lot of them. And boys, how are you feeling now that the preliminary round is behind us?
I feel like I've seen enough of them. I've seen enough of the preliminary round. It's time to move on.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've all done a great job watching the preliminary round, ready for the main round. But, you know, there are some beautiful things that come out of the preliminary rounds, especially things like missed open goals and own goals and red cards that come in 48 seconds. All of that is the beauty of the preliminary round. Chris, talk us through your reaction as Uruguay's Giovanni Capello received the ball on a fast break and was very confident, maybe too confident, chucked it right over the bar.
Before I do that, I'll just give a little overview of what we're going to do here, because Alex, you're going to be here for half of it, then you're going to magically disappear, because Alex is joining us live from Boston in the USA, making sure to be there for long enough to get his US passport to be ready for LA 2028. He's changing allegiances. He now believes in the US. Now, Alex is going to be here for groups A to D. Then we're going to magically move over to groups E to H with Rasmus Boysen subbing in. What amazing defender for another. So, yes, you asked me about Giovanni Capello. I think we can play the audio as well because it speaks for itself. Now an empty net to shoot into, ball over the top, caught. Oh no! Oh, he's missed an open goal. Oh dear. Oh no. Oh no. You shouldn't be laughing. Oh dear. Poor lad. And he's played so well today, Giovanni Capello. I was devastated for the guy. I know people listening at home can't see what I'm going to show you guys. This is literally when you hear me going, no! I lean back like screaming into the air, screaming into the roof of Scandinavium. Because it's everyone's worst nightmare.
I've thought about a moment like that in my life. Sometimes I get like flashes of like, oh my god, imagine if you missed a shot like that.
I don't know if you guys have ever had a dream like this. I've had a kind of a recurring dream, more when I was more active as a player than I am now, where I'm having a dream and I'm playing a handball match, but no matter what I do, the ball just won't go in the goal. Like, it's just like a recurring dream of, the ball just never going in the goal, no matter what you try. And like the worst part of that is an open goal. That never happened in these dreams, but it happened in Giovanni Capello's reality.
I used to have the dreams where no matter what you would do, the ball wouldn't stay in your hands. It was just unbelievably slippy. And I think that's probably what it felt like came for when he got his hands in that ball and let it rip, that it maybe just slipped out of his fingers at the end. But yeah, it's terrible. I saw someone quote retweeted him on our Twitter. He didn't like the tweet back. I noticed either. I think it's just one to forget.
And fair play to him. He did score a goal shortly after that. He had a decent game. The young left back from Uruguay. Against Brazil, and he scored today against Sweden as well. But yeah, it's hard to live that down. I'm glad I've never experienced it.
So what's worse, an open goal like that, or the own goal or self goal that Vuk Lazovic scored for Montenegro, where he chucked it into the air, then chucked it over his goalkeeper? I think that was the most impressive own goal I've ever seen in handball. You know, sometimes they do squeak in, but this was just a beautiful
lob.
lob.
I think the answer to that question is when you imagine what was going through their minds and in the pit of their stomach when it happened. And Capello's open goal miss was worse. Vuklazovic managed to laugh it off. You know, he was consoled by Nebojša Simic quickly afterwards. All was forgiven. But I think Capello just wanted to... I mean, I think I would have like feigned a heart attack or something. Or like a stroke. Just a collapse. Like, oh no, I missed the open goal. Something is clearly wrong with my body. Or like at least a hamstring injury.
At least a hamstring.
Or a shoulder dislocation. Something. Anything. But no, he took it like a man and scored a few minutes later.
So we talk about Group A a little bit then. Since we're on Montenegro there, I think Montenegro will be fairly happy with their second place finish just behind Spain, and Iran being the third team making it through from that group. I must say though, Chile, who will go on to the President's Cup now, had a actually really good representation of themselves. I mean, they lost by 1 just to Iran, 34-26 to Spain, and then just by 2 to Montenegro. So they were really, it could have been, they were in the mix big time. And their top scorer in every single game was?
Erwin Feuchtmann.
There you go. Yeah. And he'll still be here in 20 years' time. Playing for the Chilean national team. But
We will.
I think, is it fair to say that Spain's topping this group has kind of been flying under the radar a bit, that people somehow, a bit like Barcelona, people aren't that interested in Spain for the preliminary round. It's kind of more when we get to the main round onwards. Because there's been very little traffic, I've seen anyway, going around about Spain on Twitter.
But the thing is, for me, it's hard. They haven't impressed me in the opening round. You know, their results were, I think they've struggled. They struggled against Montenegro in that first game. Chile put it to them, and even Iran really held them close for a while. But the thing is, that's what Spain do. They win, just about squeeze by Montenegro, and then smash France. It's just what they do. So it's kind of just hard to gauge it. For me, the interesting thing was that Alex Dushabayev played a lot at playmaker. So I think that's with Canellas out, but now they got an injury to Ian Tarafeta. So it is going to be Dushabayev in that playmaker position, and he's done well, but it means that it's kind of Garcianda, the new kind of newcomer into the squad at right back. He had a terrible game against Chile. He really, really struggled. And then on the left side, it's Casado or Danny Dushabayev. So that back line just doesn't fill me with confidence, especially with the injury to Tarafeta. And yeah, you know, Canellas come back in, but it's Canellas playing in the Swiss league. So we all know what that means.
Semi-retirement.
MVP of the final weekend. You'll be clipping that up now.
Oh my God. It's interesting with Spain now because they are joint top of this main round group alongside France, and they've got a much tougher main round to come now. It's going to be a really interesting test if Wikipedia is to be trusted. And as we just spoke off air before we started recording, Wikipedia is fantastic for this in terms of getting the information out quicker than the federations. Spain have Poland up first, which could be a really tricky game for them now that Poland are going into the main round with probably nothing to lose. And then Slovenia, and then France.
Poland. Oh, God.
We'll go on to them. We'll go on to them in a minute.
Let's leave Poland for a little bit. Let's just
leave them for a little bit. But
I need to decompress after watching it.
But the point I'm making is that, you know, Poland were great against France. This is a similar kind of game for them, I guess. And so there's automatically a lot more pressure on this Spanish team. They were able to cruise a little bit for this preliminary round after they got the job done on day one against Montenegro. So they have to ramp it up a little bit. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I haven't seen enough of them to, even if I watched all 60 minutes of 3 games, it's difficult to judge where they are. I think we'll only begin to know when they face the main round opposition. But they got the job done here. And to be honest, in the pre-championship podcast we laid it out as, Spain clearly the number one, Montenegro clearly number two. We did have Chile ahead of Iran. That was wrong, but number one and number two were kind of clearly ahead of the rest.
We didn't fully appreciate the magic of Vasilin Vujovic as coach of Iran. His real coaching style came through, and Iran were not too bad. Even after that first win against Chile, which was, huge for them. This, it's a huge victory. The comment that he had afterwards was, I don't think we deserved this win. We played maybe maximum 30% of our potential. That was the reaction after Iran got potentially one of the biggest wins of all time in their history. But that's exactly what Vasilin Vujovic is.
Yeah, he's a man of standards, He doesn't care about writing history.
Did you hear there was a few tweets about this, his timeout talk with, I think it was in the second game against Montenegro. And he was just like, right, you get the ball, 5 seconds, and then you shoot like Kim Anderson. I just I wonder if his tactical approach is just showing all of these players, like the Iranian players, brilliant European players over the years, saying, this is what you're going to be, shoot like him. This is what you're going to be, run like him. This is Adrian Shipos, you punch him in the face like him. And but hey, they're through. Iran making history, and they get into the main round. And, a scalp or two could be on the way. Well, one scalp could be on the way against Poland.
Group B, then we have France, Slovenia, Poland, and Saudi Arabia heading to the President's Cup. I think probably it's fair to say France seem like in almost a similar position to what Spain were in Group A. It's kind of hard to know what to make of them until maybe they're under a bit more pressure. Their opening game against Poland obviously really tough, and then I think Poland never really hit those heights again after that amazing performance against France, and then had that disastrous game against Slovenia where they lost 23-32. And then just to keep it really interesting, because they want to keep the fans in Poland really excited about the game, they really kept it close with Saudi Arabia, which I don't even know how is that possible, but fair play to Saudi Arabia, I suppose, for making a game of it. Poland only won by 3 in the end, 27-24. So yeah, what do you make generally of Group B?
I think it's very impressive from Slovenia, and then I think it's a pretty good test that France fairly comfortably beat Slovenia. I think it's a good sign for France going forward in the competition. I was a little bit worried about France. I'm still a little bit worried about France, about their overall ability. It's what can I say? It's still France, but again, beating Slovenia very comfortably gave me a bit more confidence in them, and I kind of now feel more comfortable about them being in that semi-final contention and medal contention. And that's just down to that win against Slovenia. So I think before that, it was hard to judge. After it, I feel a bit more comfortable. Remili was fantastic in that game against Slovenia. 7 goals, 7 assists. A true playmaker performance. And Cantamaia is just doing fantastic things. So I like that.
And hey, I mean, it wasn't, a 2-goal lead at halftime, 4-goal win at full time. That is not, that's not 100% straightforward. That's a challenge. And Slovenia have, for a team that didn't qualify, a team that had to get a wild card. In fact, both wildcard teams have been impressive. The Dutch as well have been good. And Alex Vla, we hoped, we tipped him to step up, and he's having a championship so far. He was really, really good against Poland, and 9 goals today against France.
Have you guys heard of the Zorman Libero?
Oh yes.
Have you seen that yet?
I've been waiting to dive into. I mean, I specifically watched back the Poland Slovenia game to watch it. Take us through it, Alex.
So the Zorman Libero is a new attacking style that Zorman, the head coach of Slovenia, has come up when you have an advantage of a player. So opposing team gets 2 minutes, and you might think, okay, maybe add an extra player. But Uros Jorman noticed that in the games leading up to the championship, the line player was just getting in the way. Big Blaž Blagotinšek was just eating up loads of space for the quick and fast Slovenian playmakers. So what he did was, here Blaž, stand in your own half.
Go long,
We're gonna
Blaž.
play- Go long. You just chill out in the back here. You block off any empty net or any fast break attempts that might happen. We're gonna go 5 versus 5 in lots of space. We have, Blaž Jans, we have Vla, we've got these amazing quick one-on-one players, and we're just gonna beat every team. And then they scored 5 from 5 in majority against Poland. I don't know the stats against France, but seeing as it was a close game, I'm going to presume that they did pretty well with the Zorman libero as well, and it works. It's just lots of space, and the Slovenian team can just take advantage of that.
Yeah, the funniest part is that you wouldn't go, we put someone else on the wing. No, you just go along, because they wouldn't trust him to shoot from the wing anyway, so he can't be bothered. So you just stand over there, mate.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
genius.
Love to see it.
I mean, for a team like that, very few teams it could work with. There are a couple of other teams I can imagine it would work with, but not many. And yeah, when your whole team is a bunch of playmakers that can outrun most people one-on-one, or at least if they're not going to do it, create space for others to do it. Yeah, brilliant. Fair play to Uros Zorman. He's a tactical innovator.
Is this one of those things that now that we'll say this now and someone will come on, oh no, back in the 1960s we played this all the time? Is this going to be an old school thing that we just have never seen before with our young handball eyes?
I don't think we've ever seen a player just standing in his own half. Like an outfield player standing in his own half, just chilling out while his mates are running around. I doubt that has been played before, but I also lost my whole reputation, my handball knowledge reputation, because, I don't know, in the last episode, I put my whole reputation on the fact that an English-speaking country has not taken 2 points in a world championship before in the group stage. And our friend of the podcast and Patreon member, Type Ramadani, message saying that in 2003, Australia did get a win against Greenland in the group stage when there was 4 groups of 6. And that's what I didn't account for. So anything I say, don't trust me after that.
But for now, we'll accept it as the Zorman libero. Let's talk quickly about Poland before we go. It all seemed so... I mean, in the last podcast, you guys spoke to Tomasz Gembala. He seemed so hopeful. That game against France gave a lot of good vibes, and then they shat the bed against Slovenia. Well and truly.
It was like they had 50 minutes. They've played 50 minutes of incredible handball so far, and those last 10 minutes against France is what they looked like for the rest of the games that they've played, where they all of a sudden the young and exciting backcourt that kind of looked really a little bit rough around the edges, but they were now and then taking some wacky shots, but it was working out against France. But in the other games, then it was the worst side of that. So take out Simon Shishko and Morito out from that team, and all of a sudden it becomes very, very poor. And it's a tough game for them against Spain. I can't see, and there's such a confidence knock as well of being pushed all the way by Saudi Arabia in the last game at home. That's a tough thing to come back from. So it's very disappointing for them. But look, it's not over.
Did you guys put it down to the pressure of the situation? Like France was kind of pressure free. It was a free hit to try and take down the Olympic champions. And then it was like, okay, now we have to start winning games, and it hit them very differently.
I think that Slovenian game, they just fell apart. I think they just really crumbled as a team in that second half. But their attack is just, it's a mess. It's really, there's a real lack of movement. There's a lack of off the ball movement. There's a lack of ingenuity. And then they're just missing Shipchak, because what they do is they have a couple of players that are good one-on-one, but they're lobbing these balls up to Maciej Kabala, and I'm sorry, he's not Campbell Shipchak. They're, these small playmakers, Olenicek, going kind of one-on-one, two-on-two, and then chucking balls up, and they're just not being caught. And it takes out a huge portion of their attack, and there's not enough ingenuity around that to make up for it. And they can only shoot from one side, the left side. Dacek has been a great mainstay in as a small right back, but it's difficult to watch. And in defense, they're also struggling against smaller, faster players like Slovenia. So they're gonna, that's why I'm scared for their game against Spain. They could really be found out. Like Alex Dushabayev could probably do whatever he wants with that Polish defense.
Yeah, I mean, like Marito and Simon Cisco, they scored 17 goals between them against Saudi Arabia. That's 62% of all the goals they scored in the game. So it just shows you how kind of, two-dimensional their attack is. It's either one or the other. And I think Spain will be looking at and licking their lips a bit.
Yeah, so it's in main round Group 1, Spain and France, top of the pile, 4 points each. Slovenia, Montenegro on 2 points each. Poland and Iran on 0 points. In the opening day, Spain play Poland and France play Montenegro. Seems to me, unless Montenegro and Poland can pull off some real miracles in the next couple of days, that it's a 3-horse race between Spain, France and Slovenia to go through. It's Slovenia versus Spain on the second main round day. That feels like the decisive one for me. Do you see an opportunity for Slovenia here?
Hard to predict. This group hasn't... This whole group is hard to predict, because I think there hasn't been really a team out of all of these in the main round Group 1 that has impressed so far. Maybe France. I think Slovenia have a chance against Spain. I'll say it. I think Slovenia have a real opportunity to get past Spain.
I don't know. I think maybe Slovenia is, as we pointed out before the tournament, defensively maybe a bit small and light, and I think that might be a bit undoing against the big boisterous boys of the Spanish team. So it could be a very similar game to the France game that we saw. Yeah, so I'd fancy Spain for that one. I think Daniel Dushabayev or Alex Dushabayev to tear. Oh my god, maybe. Well, maybe it is Daniel Dushabayev.
But that's the thing. They need Daniel Dushabayev. That's the Spain backcourt. It's Daniel Dushabayev needs to be a star for them to get further and further competition. And I'm just not sure of that. I trust Alex Vla more than Dani Dushabayev. So
yeah, I don't know. We'll see about that. But Chris, Group C.
Group C.
This is your hometown, your bread and butter. Going home every evening. No more hotels in Gothenburg. Sweden, Brazil, Cape Verde, and Uruguay. You were there in the arena for all of these matches. Commented on them. What was your general vibe of Sweden's dominance?
Yeah, Sweden's dominance. There was a dodgy first half against Brazil where they were put to the test a little bit. They put that behind them, and since then, yeah, they really cruised. I mean, they've looked pretty strong. I mean, in the same context as Spain and France, there's only so much you can garner from a preliminary round, but Sweden have done very little wrong. They've rotated the entire squad. They've given each of their 3 goalkeepers an entire match, and the winner of that was Tobias Tullin with 68% save rate.
68%
against
21 of 31.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen a performance like that, like where the amount of saves versus shot faced is the highest ratio. You might have seen 68% before, but it's not 21 saves.
It was quite a. I mean, he was just having a great time. Sweden were having a great time for the whole week. To be honest, we could dwell on that first half against Brazil, but you can afford to have a poor half at the beginning of a championship when you end up winning that match by 8. So there's no point in dwelling on it. I think on reflection, it's one of the weakest groups in the whole championship. The Brazil-Cape Verde match was really good today. That was quite exciting. Brazil came out 30-28 winners. And yeah, I've liked both of these teams. They're scrappy teams. They don't always do things the easy way or the right way, but they have fun doing it. And I had fun watching them every step of the way. So it'll be really interesting to see how they do coming up against the big European teams coming from Kristianstad in Group D. Sweden have a huge advantage now. That's all I can say with the three teams coming from the other group on 2 points. I don't think they're going to mess this up. They look very smooth. Jim Gottfriedson is in good form. He took one game by the scruff of the neck when he needed to. Besides that, he's kind of just played it a little bit and then sat and let the rest of the guys do the job. Everyone's seems in pretty good form, and it's coming home.
But I think that they're the two. So I think Sweden and Denmark have both had a nice slow start to the tournament where they've just flexed their muscles, stretched a little bit, done those little turning stretches, maybe touch the toes a little bit. Yeah. Let their boys run out there, let everyone get like a debut goal and have a fantastic performance. And then we'll see what happens in the next one. I think for Sweden, they are getting thrown into the wolves of that fantastic Group D. Yeah. I think by far, we said it was going to be the best group in the competition in the preliminary round, and it really lived up to the hype. Even just a little point on South Korea, who were actually quite exciting at times, and they challenged every team for 40 to 50 minutes, but were just inexperienced. But ignoring them, Group D really just lived up to the hype. Are you worried, Brian, as a huge Icelandic supporter?
No, not at all. No, it's still all on track. One bad game. They were absolutely smacking and spanking Hungary for most of that game as well. It was just an absolute one of those fluke moments. And I feel like every team that wins gold anyway always has one of those games early in the preliminary round where they learn their lessons. And that's the problem with Sweden and Denmark, that will have no lessons to learn from, and they're coming in a bit too soft now. As you said, Alex, all those little soft warm-ups or that little penalty you take inside the 6 metre, which I don't know, does anyone have a name for that game that every single handball team does warming up? The little fake penalty trick shot thing. I never liked that playing handball, but every single team does it, and I don't know why. Or they start playing red ass. I don't know. It's such a strange sport, really, to play football warming up for a handball match. But yes, no, I'm not worried about Iceland. I think they'll still come good. I've lots of confidence for them. But didn't we say before the tournament that all of these teams are going to be, I think as you, Chris, said, that these teams are all going to trade wins and losses and end up on 4 points each?
I think Alex predicted that from Group A with
that was it.
I had no faith in, and I know we have a strong Hungarian following, and I apologize. No, I did have faith that they, under no pressure, would play well. I didn't think they would beat Iceland, but I think I felt, it's so classic Hungary. A year on from a disastrous home championship where there was all this anticipation that they would pull off something. I mean, that they would have the potential to pull off something. Watching that 5-minute spell at the end of the Iceland-Hungary game was so bizarre because Iceland, they were 5 goals ahead at one point.
It was an 11-3 run by Hungary to finish off the game.
Yeah, and the 5-0 run from 3 goals down to 2 goals up just felt so nonchalant from everyone involved. It was just kind of it just kind of happened, like Bjarki Mar-Ellison missed 2 shots. He was 9 from 11 and then he missed 2, and it's like, oh, it's okay, but wait, no, it's not okay, we're losing by 2 now. Oh shit. Like we gotta get going here, and then it's too late. That was a really weird game.
Very, very odd.
I did mention after our first game was I flagged that Magnusson had played 60 minutes. Yeah. And that actually, in the end, Palmerson played 53 minutes in that first game, and Christiansen played every attack, pretty much. And then they ran out of steam against Hungary. But my question is, do you think they actually ran out of steam? Was it a physical or was it more of a mental issue?
For me, it felt like a complete mental breakdown. Just that, do you know that the crushing momentum that you have? I think it's probably more crushing in handball than anything else when someone starts to chase you like that and the clock is ticking down, and it was just a bit panic stations. And also their shooting just turned into absolute muck as well.
Yeah.
Bjarki, who was so reliable for the whole game, then all of a sudden starts missing shots and kind of just lost their heads a bit. And everything seemed to go Hungary's way as well, which
I don't think you could put down that physical. I mean, that they were fine. Like they just were like, you don't go from fine to zero fitness wise, but you can do that mentally. And it was some kind of collective brain fart, which could really punish them.
Yeah, I just wonder if like having those other options and putting them on when things go wrong, maybe something Iceland didn't expect to do. So like to not be in that insane situation. But when things are going wrong, when the team isn't firing, you know, changing things up. And that's something that Iceland didn't do. And, you know, in their last game of the group stage, they destroyed South Korea, but there was, there's good performances by a lot of those kind of second level players for Iceland. And I wonder if they will just get a bit more of an opportunity as the tournament goes on. And if they need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, they rotated the squad pretty well today against South Korea. Odin Thor Rickardsson scored 11 goals. Smarrison scored 4 goals. They spread it out pretty well. Viggo Christiansen with 6, Vidderson with 2, Arnason with 2 as well. So Magnusson I don't think played at all. Yeah, they left it a little too late to do that. It might be a good reminder that these players can do it because a 13 goal win over Korea is not to be sniffed at, So yeah, it just puts them in a pretty tricky situation, seeing as Portugal all of a sudden looking pretty good.
Portugal looking fantastic. Yeah. Kiko Costa absolutely breaking Adrian Chipas. It was. Can we wrap that award up already? Can we just kind of? It's coming home. You're singing "It's Coming Home," Chris. But the only thing that's truly coming home is the Adrian Chipas Award for Excellence in Shithousery, because he got a red card after 48 seconds. After Kiko Costa gave him a little shoulder wiggle, got past him, and he just couldn't catch up.
Yeah, I had to, even though I was doing the Sweden-Uruguay game, I had a chance between 5 counter-attack goals or so to, look at some replays. No, I didn't. I went at half-time and had a look at what happened because I couldn't believe it. I was like, surely he's committed something really terrible. It's not even that bad. It's like, it's very shithousery because it's the kind of thing that I bet he thought he could get away with, because he jumps up to try and block the shot. Kiko Costa then, goes down. He's going to bounce and go around him. Shiposh is like, I'll just, drop the right arm and catch him. And he doesn't get away with it, though. The referees go to the video replay. And we say 48 seconds, but they didn't actually really start playing until 25 seconds into the game. So the first 25 seconds is like they're passing the ball to each other. There's some high fives.
Can I just say that's getting ridiculous. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm done with it. Like
I know what you're talking about.
25 seconds of the game, and they've already lined up and high-fived each other to say hello. Every single player has high-fived each other. The build-up takes 10-15 minutes. Then they set up and they're like, hey mate, how you doing? It's like they have, those NBA handshakes. I wouldn't be surprised if soon we're going to see like a handshake that's like 10 seconds long between 2 opposing players, and the ball is juggling between them, and the ball now bounces between 3 or 4 players. Everyone gets a nice feel of the ball, and then okay, here we go.
Yeah, but
sick of it.
The problem is, Alex, though, you're in the arena and you're watching that and all that handshakes and people passing the ball over, teams passing the ball over and back to each other, and everyone in the crowd's going, "Oh, love that, love handball. That's handball. Real men, real men. It's not football." So we almost define ourselves by being as not like football as possible or other sports. So like that's a thing now that's almost become part of the zeitgeist in handball, and I think it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to get longer and longer.
I didn't think that was going
I
to
just
trigger.
want a player to go for the fast break. Just come on.
That has happened.
Like Milos Vujovic is going to do that. Like Milos Vujovic would do that.
Yeah, I saw today. So at the Brazil Cape Verde game at the beginning, Thiago Petrus pretended to do it for a second. He got given the ball. He was like, "Whoa." Then he actually passed it to a teammate, and then they passed it back to Cape Verde. But
it's nonsense.
The best of this was Antonio Arrea on the near side on the right wing for Portugal, and Mate Lekoy, who's defending on the wing for Hungary. They're literally having a chat for 15 seconds, while the ball is like going around. So they've probably barely even stopped talking by the time Adrian Šipoš has knocked Kiko Costa out.
The best part thing is like Adrian Šipoš probably like 10 seconds before that was like, "Oh, cheers, mate. Yeah, thanks for the ball. Yeah, how are you doing?" And then 10 seconds later, he's nailing someone, and then he's up in the stands 15 seconds later. It's just like that has to get the award, I think. But I would say Kiko Costa is another guy who could be up for getting the shithousery award as well, because the amount of stuff he gets away with, pulling shorts, pulling jerseys, getting people riled up, like he really annoys people on the court. But I don't know, I love it. Like I'm all for it. Like.
There's one final thing in that red card, because there's not much to talk about in that Portugal-Hungary game, it seems. Brian, you said you could barely keep your eyes open. So the referees actually go to Chema Rodrigues to give him the decision before they go over. He describes it, and Chema's just like nods his head in like silent acceptance, is like, "Yes, it is Adrian Šipoš." So a shout out to Eugene Lavery, who on Twitter is really pushing us to interview Adrian. He is going to be in Gothenburg now for a week, so I will try to get a chat with him and see what he says. It might be an interesting one if I can get him to a point where I feel comfortable enough describing the award to him.
But isn't this tournament the most Hungarian tournament? I think if you're going to look up for like a definition, a blueprint of what are Hungary like at events at our final tournaments, a surprise win, getting absolutely scoring 3 goals in 20 minutes against Portugal, and then Adrian Šipoš getting one of the most entertaining red cards of the whole tournament. I mean, that's basically what you get to expect from Hungary at final tournaments.
But what does that mean for the main round now? So they're in this main round, level on points in second place. This main round group is really exciting for me. So Sweden, top of the pile on 4 points. Then it's Portugal, Iceland, Hungary, Brazil, all on 2. And then Cape Verde on 0. How do you think it's going to go, Brian? Who's your money on here now assuming Sweden are going to go through? If you assume that, who's going to join them?
I think I agree with you that it's very difficult to see Sweden not keeping that top spot. I mean, the first game against Hungary. I mean, everything said about Hungary so far that would be just classic if Hungary came out then and beat Sweden. But no, I think Sweden will top the group, and I'd imagine on the opening day it'll be Portugal and Iceland to take victories there. What's really one of the crunch games, possibly. Well, the Iceland-Sweden game will be very interesting, I think. That's going to be, strap yourselves in for that one, because that's going to be a very entertaining one. Yeah, then in the final day as well, Sweden might be home and dry by that stage, but Sweden-Portugal on the last day also might be a good one.
Because you remember the Women's Euro in November, it was like between Sweden and Denmark, which team would join Norway in the semi-finals from that group, and it was like, okay, it's going to come down to who can get a result against the top team, and if nobody does, then it was like this surprisingly good situation for Sweden based on goal difference. Portugal are that team now, so Portugal in the 3-way tie with Iceland and Hungary are in the lead. So if nothing changes, Sweden beats all of them, and those 3 teams beat the other teams in the group. Then it's Portugal to go through without having to beat Sweden. So Iceland need a result to give themselves a chance. And 20th of January, Iceland, Sweden, that's going to be huge.
So you spoke to someone after some of the games today. Is that what you said there?
So we can wrap up this half of the draw. And before we bring Rasmus in, I had a chance to speak to Mr. Dependable on the Brazil team, Gustavo Rodrigues, to hear what he thought of the victory over Cape Verde and his expectations for facing the big dogs in the main round. So first of all, congratulations. We knew it was going to be a tough game, a close game as well. How did you feel in those final minutes? It seemed like a lot of nerves and tension for both teams.
Yes, of course. Was a really good match. With the end of the game, it was close, but we had the patience and the strategy to win the game in the end.
And for the most part, the attack seemed very composed. Particularly when you're in there, you control things very nicely. But when players are missing, empty net shots, for example, I think there were 5 of them that game. It just seemed to add a bit of pressure for the team as well. Did you feel it as well? Thinking, okay, we should be 5-6 goals ahead here, but they're just not going away.
Yes, we lose these goals without goalkeeper, so it's an easy goal for us. But we have this feeling could be more goals of the difference. But it's okay. It happens. It's the game. We will try to get better.
And overall, the whole week so far has had its up and downs, but you come through with 2 points, which I think is probably as much as you could have hoped for.
Yes, of course. Was the first thing to what we think to do. Arrived to the main round with the 2 points. Now we wait to the other group, and we will see what we can do to play against the 3 of the other group, and we will try to get the quarterfinals.
How do you feel the last few weeks has gone in general? I mean, the pre-tournament warm-up matches, there was a few ups and downs, really. It looked like the team has developed a lot in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes, we started not so good, the preparation to the championship, but every game, every day we get better. So I think we'll be much better for the next 3 games.
And if everything goes to plan for you, it looks like there could be 3 teams going through with 2 points from the other the other group into the main round, which leaves things very open.
Yes, it's like this. We will see this tonight. It's I think tonight, and we will hope the 3 of the other group arrive with 2 points. Like this, we have a chance to arrive to the quarterfinals.
And it's always difficult to say right after the game, but do you think of any areas in particular that is quite pleasing for the team that you think you can hurt the European teams coming over now?
I think we in Brazil have a lot of energy. The defense in these last games is really good. It's tough. So I think we can start this to get a really good defense. Then after play with with happiness in the attack. After everything will be good.
Good stuff. Thank you, Gustavo.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So for part 2 of our preliminary round wrap up, we make a vital substitution as Rasmus Boysen comes in for Alex Kulet. Rasmus, how are you doing?
I'm great, thanks, Chris.
We'll pick up where we left off on Group E with Germany, Serbia, Qatar and Algeria. That group where, I'd like to get your view on it. First of all, Rasmus, Germany topping the pile after coming through a very close game against Serbia. That was the key game in the group, I guess you could say.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the game between Serbia and Germany was, as you said, very close. Germany had the best performance in the goal, which was very vital. I think that Chupara had a bad day for Serbia, and of course it was bad for them that he had the bad day against the best team, and that Milosavljev not was ready to play yet. Bielim came in, made a great game, and I think that Germany is a totally different Germany that we have been seeing for the last 2, 3, 4 years. They play with a lot of speed and creativity offensively, I think, and the main reason for that, in my opinion, is that Yuri Knorr has joined the team finally. He has been very, very good. My expectations for him were so high before the the tournament, and I have seen him a lot, and he has been so great. So that's great news for Germany. I think that Serbia played a very good game. They also are on the rise, in my opinion. And as said, it was a very close game. The two other, Qatar and Algeria, has not been as good as I have hoped for them. Of course, always I would like the non-European teams to have some good games. But Qatar, of course, just before the tournament, they lost their by far most important player, and in Frankis Marceau, and also Rafael Capote, who is a very important player, has struggled with some injuries. So that was not so good for them. So I think that, as you said, Germany and Serbia was by far the two greatest team.
Everyone was talking about Yuri Knorr coming into the tournament, and maybe that Alfred Gislason himself was maybe getting a bit too excited about, wow, we actually have a centre-back now. And there was a part of the game there where I was thinking, okay, he probably needs to rest now. And that's when Serbia really started to come back into it. He looked visibly tired on the court, and maybe everyone's getting a bit carried away with Germany finally having a centre-back. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I agree, but of course it's difficult to take a guy like Yuri Knorr out when he's been very good, and he had the opportunity in the game after to get some rest. But I think that Alfred Gislason also tried to keep him on the floor. They played some test matches against Iceland before the World Championship, where he made some errors also in the end of the game. And Gislason told actually to the media that it was because of Yuri Knorr that they lost. So it's always difficult, because we also saw with Iceland that they also maybe forgot to rest some of the players in the match, and that was not good for Germany in the end. So it will be very exciting to see, because they play with not that much players, Germany. So there's a lot of matches, and it's a long World Championship. How will it be when we go to match 5 or 6? That will be interesting.
Yeah, and those matches in the main round, looking at the group they're going to cross with, Group F, with Norway, Netherlands and Argentina going in. We'll talk about Norway, Netherlands, I think, a fair bit, because that was such an interesting game last night as we're recording. But just one more bit on Serbia before we move on. Because a lot of talk before the championship was about the mentality side of the team. It's finally a case where Tony Girona has gotten his main squad together for the most part. You know, last year at the European Championship, they had so many COVID cases that really hit them hard. I mean, same for a lot of teams, but Serbia were down to, fourth choice right backs and that kind of thing. But it seemed like the mentality side of it was something that people doubted in the team. And that did pop up a little bit, I feel, in those final 10 minutes against Germany, because they were in a position to, if you count the golden opportunities, the score that they missed, not only get a draw in the end, but potentially win it.
Yeah, it's difficult. I think that Serbia, they seem like a team now. And it was the small things that decided the match in the end. I don't think that it was such a thing about mentality. Not for me. I think that they seem stronger. They seem like it's. They have all the players know what to do in the matches, and the roles are very clear. So I can see Serbia making some very good results in the main round.
On to Group F then. So it's Norway, Netherlands, Argentina going through. And just before we talk about the big dogs in this team, Alex sent us a tweet over from Fede Pizarro from the Argentine team. I'm pretty sure you've seen it as well, Rasmus. Nothing passes you on Twitter. But in Spanish translated, saying, in 2 years, we've barely had a training session together. No tours, no training camps, and non-existent support for a national team that has played in the last 3 Olympics and was in the top 10 in the world 2 years ago. We spoke about that in the pre-championship podcast, where this team was a whisker away from getting into the quarterfinals. It never seemed like that was going to be possible here, but they did manage to get into the main round with a pretty comprehensive or very comprehensive win over North Macedonia in the end. Diego Simeone stepping up when he needs to. But all that taken into consideration, the tough group they had with Norway and Netherlands, what do you think of the Argentina performance so far?
For them, the main goal was to go to the main round, and they had a very difficult draw, but made a very good performance against the North Macedonian team, and I think that they had also thought about that game for a long time, and they knew that they would have a hard time against both the Netherlands and Norway. And I think that we have seen that before also with other South American teams. They know when to play for 100% and when they have to rest. We saw that with Chile for some World Championships ago. So I think that it was clever by them. I don't see them in the same level as for 2, 3, 4 years ago. They have some new players who will be great in, I think, 3, 4, 5 years. But now they need to develop. They need to play a lot of matches. And I think that this World Championship, it was so important for them to go to the main round, to get these matches against great opponents. A very, very great win against North Macedonia, and they were by far the greatest team. I think their defense was very, very good. They were so aggressive, and they took all the speed out of the slow North Macedonian players. So I think they did a very great job.
I think we need to talk now about the game that everyone was looking forward to, was the Dutch versus Norway. We've come very used to that on the women's side, becoming an absolute classic, and it's good to see it now happen a bit more often on the men's side. Had you just watched the first half, I think you would have looked at it going 17-13 to the Dutch. They're really starting to run away with it. But then when Norway came out in the second half, they really turned around, didn't they? Yeah,
they did. I think that throughout almost all the game, the Netherlands did what they have to do. They play fast, and they really, really battled the Norwegian defense. I have had my doubts about the Norwegian defense. I don't think they look as good defensively that they have done for maybe 3-4 years ago. And I think that the Netherlands showed how to make it hard for the Norwegian defense. The biggest problem for me for the Netherlands is that they play with 8-9 players, and in the end they didn't have the stamina to play against Norway, who have a lot of great players. So that for me decided the game.
And it's a good position finally for Norway to be in, that you're saying that they have players to choose from, because this is exactly the problem for them in recent championships, that they also had been relying on 8-9 players to go through. But yeah, you have to credit the Netherlands, like the players they did make use of, and a lot of talk yesterday about Samir Ben-Hanem, who everyone is just perplexed by the fact that he's still playing club handball in Green Park, Aalsmeer, which that was even a question last year, I think, in the Euro, because he's a great player for just once he gets his hands on the ball, he's very, very difficult to stop.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also in defense, I think he has the physics, and that's very important for the Netherlands. Of course, they are not the biggest team, but they also need some guys in defense to be physically strong. And for them, he is so important.
And obviously a tough tournament for North Macedonia. I think the choice that Lazarus had to make, bringing a lot of new players in that no one had even heard of before, a lot of debutants, but it really was baptism by fire for them this time out, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally. And I think the generational change for them will be very, very difficult. It's not normal that a nation like North Macedonia have had such a great team that they did for 10 or 15 years. Now they are back to normal, I think. North Macedonia will be a team who sometimes will go to the championships and sometimes they won't. I think that for me, it's a little bit hard to see, because that's have always been my second team at the championships. I always love their amazing and passionate fans, and they play with so much heart in their team. But yeah, it is difficult. I think especially their defense is not on the top level. The defense is not good enough to go to the main round, and it's the same for them as for Argentina. It's just a difficult draw. For I think 3 or 4 other groups, they might go to the main round, but now they they just ended in a very, very difficult group.
We talked a lot about it before. Like the squad choices were a bit unusual. There's the clear line between Lazarov, this alkaloid squad, and the players involved. There was one thinking, oh, maybe this youthful team will be able to match or try to match the speed of their speedy opposition. That just wasn't the case. Do you think that that Kira Lazarov will be given freedom of the country and still hold on to this job and try to develop something there, because maybe there's no better alternative than to stick with him?
I think he needs time, and North Macedonia needs time to develop new players. In the long run, I think they do the right thing. They need to have some young players to give them the expectations from being at the World Championship. And it's difficult. Of course, the results haven't been good enough for a team and a nation like North Macedonia. Like handball is almost religion in some parts of that nation, but he needs time. For me, of course, he has been in the position for 2 years now, I think, but it's a new team, and there's a lot of great players retiring at the same time. Then it's just difficult. So I hope that they will give him time.
Group G is one which, for the English-speaking world, was a very interesting one, with Egypt, Croatia and the United States moving on to the main round. Maybe we'll start with the United States. I think their opening game against Morocco was one which kind of took over certain parts of Twitter and surprised a lot of people. Were you surprised that they were actually able to get the job done against Morocco on that opening day?
I think that they have been a little underrated. I saw the test matches of them in Norway before the World Championship, and I can see that they have potential. Of course, they are not the strongest team, but defensively, I see a team with a lot of physics, and they have some X factor offensively. I think they have some great players, and some of the players also playing in Europe, and like that. It's like we sometimes forget that they can play handball, and of course Morocco. It was very bad for them, but. Yeah, I was surprised, but not like it for me. It was not a sensation.
Well, I was talking to Chris before you came on there, and I was saying the United States will be looking at this now. And had I said to you before the whole tournament, the United States are going to be in the main round and potentially win 2 games, when you look at Belgium and Bahrain, that would be games which they will look at thinking, we might have a chance here. We're at least going to make a game of both of those games.
Yeah, of course it's surprising, but it's very, very good. I think. Of course, it's a project for the United States to try to develop a team who can performance in 5 years. It's just good. It's just so good for them. It's like the same as Argentina. It's just a lot of great matches where they can get to know how much it takes to be in the top 12, like in handball in the world. So I just think it's very good and. For the development of handball worldwide, it's also very, very good to see the United States competing in the World Championship.
Yeah, and I think there were some people maybe on the US side, and we have a lot of US listeners who were getting a little disappointed with the results in the second and third game. 40-22 against Croatia, 35-16 against Egypt, but. It felt like Robert Hedin has a certain way he wants his team to play. They are playing, high tempo and counterattack. They're playing risky passes over and over again. They're not, you could go into this game and take an approach, which some teams might do. We're just going to slow the ball down and we'll lose, 29-12 or 29-15 and it'll be a bit more respectable. But the US they're going balls out. So to speak, and it really hurt them in those games against Croatia and Egypt, because I think in the first half alone against Egypt they had 12 turnovers and 9 of those were steals by Egypt. But they're playing in a way that Robert Hedin is trying to develop, and it's not going to get results against those big teams straight away. But at least they won't forget what they're learning then against teams where they could potentially get a result. And he's also giving everyone a run out, which is quite good. The whole squad is playing. I think it's kind of understandable, those heavy defeats. what was particularly impressive for me watching this group pretty closely in Jönköping was Egypt. I mean, particularly in that first match, I spoke to Yehia El-Deraa, and he was quite... he spoke about that first game against Croatia and being in a new position where the first game was so important for them. But goodness me, did they deliver in that first game? What a bunch of machines they were.
Yeah, totally agree. They have so much physics, and we saw it also before the World Championship again in France against France. They just play very, very good offensively. Of course, the biggest question mark was could they cope with the loss of Omar? But they just have a lot of great players, and they have a lot of the biggest difference for 10 years ago. Now, all the players they play in very good clubs all around Europe. That's so important that they are used to play against the European players. And I see a team who, on the day, could beat like every team in the world. The biggest question for me is if the goalkeepers in the Egyptian team is just good enough. I don't know. But offensively, I see them as being on the level as almost every other teams. And yeah, of course, it's difficult for a team like Egypt to begin the World Championship with such interesting and such an important game as against Croatia. And when they just deliver like that, yeah, I'm just full of respect of that.
And what do you make of this Croatian team then? Obviously a hugely disappointing first match, but I think when you look at their squad, they have a very strong starting seven, but it's maybe after that it starts to fall apart a bit. But I think people coming into it were a little bit unsure, but they always think that just Croatia can bring some unknown players with them, but they'll still have a strong base there to compete. But they were definitely off the mark in the first game. But do you see them growing into the tournament a bit more, or where do you put this Croatian team?
Yeah, I think they'll grow. The problem for them is that so many of their most important players defensively, they are out of the championship due to injuries, and that takes time to cope from that. Of course, Croatia is such a big handball country, and they need to be disappointed about their performance against Egypt. But when that being said, I think they need time, and it's just difficult when you lost so many players. But they have some individually skilled players, still world class players. We saw Luka Sindrich in the latest match on his real level, and of course Duvnjak is so important, but also Karasic and Martinovic. So they have the players offensively to do some damage on against a lot of good defenses. And I think that against Denmark, they offensively could have a lot of potential to score a lot of goals, but I just think that the defense will be their biggest problem.
That first game, that's the first game of the main round for both of those teams, Denmark against Croatia. Now, Rasmus, I have a rule for myself, and I think a lot of people have the same rule. At women's championships, I never watch Norway in the first week. At men's championships, I never watch Denmark in the first week. Because
I do.
You do, I know, that's for sure. That's why it's really good to have you and get your perspective on this. 3 victories, a plus 43 goal difference. We knew that they were going to get 3 wins here. They were going to be comfortable wins. So what were you looking out for? And what caught your attention about Denmark and this Group H?
Yeah, a lot of things to be fair. I think that the philosophy of Nikolaj Jakobsen is the same as always. He wants to give a lot of minutes to his most important players. So a lot of the discussion in Denmark is that he maybe should rest some of the players a little earlier in the matches, because players like Mikkel Hansen, like Mathias Giesel, like Magnus Saustrup, and also Simon Pytlik, who has been very good and just have had a big role. Also due to the fact that Rasmus Lauge is out, but they play a lot of minutes and they play so fast. And of course, it's also a new backcourt who needs a lot of minutes, but he play a lot of minutes with his biggest and best players, and it will be exciting to see if that's the same in the main round. I guess it is. I'm very impressed by players like Simon Pytlik and Lukas Jørgensen, who are new in the team, but it feels like they just go in just the same as Mathias Gisel has done, and it feels like the way and the teamwork in the Danish team is so good that it's just easy for the new players to come in and to be integrated very fast. So that's very good. So for Denmark, the biggest problem has been the injuries of Rasmus Laug and now also Henrik Mølgaard. I see some problems defensively. I think that it's difficult when you are just better than the other teams. But also in the game against Tunisia, we saw some problems in the man-against-man duels. So it will be very exciting to see Denmark against Croatia, because Croatia have, as I mentioned before, some great players offensively who could, it could be a struggle for Denmark defensively. I think that's the main problem. But Niklas Landin, who had a difficult half season in Kiel, he has been on the top again, and that's of course very important for Denmark.
Would you be more worried about Croatia or Egypt in the main round?
Yeah, that's difficult. I think that offensively, maybe the Croatian team could be more difficult for Denmark to play against, because they are much faster and have some individual skills that I don't think that Egypt maybe have. But I think that Egypt they are just on another level that Croatia. For me, I think it will be more difficult against Egypt. And of course, it will be difficult for Croatia to go through also by the fact that they just lost with 10 goals against Egypt. And if they manage to win against Denmark, they maybe need to win with like 5, 6, 7 goals. And that's, for me, unrealistic.
So is that, we'll go back to main round group 3 before we go, but seeing as we're on group 4 now already. So is it quite, on paper, it looks like the most straightforward group in terms of which teams are going to go through, because Egypt, as you alluded to, have already done the job against Croatia, and it'll take something special for Croatia to overthrow Denmark. Is there anyone of those other 3 teams in the group with Bahrain and Belgium? By the way, Bahrain, Belgium and Tunisia played a nice little 3 nations tournament while Denmark were spanking them every other day. But anyone there that can trouble Egypt, for example, and maybe give them a tough time and mess up this seemingly easy route to the quarterfinal?
I don't think so. I think Belgium, they look tired. They began the tournament very good, but now they look tired. It will be very, very difficult against Egypt. Bahrain, they have some skills. They are physically strong, but I just don't think that they have the power to beat Egypt. I could see Bahrain. I could see them give Croatia a hard time, maybe, but not Egypt.
Okay. So it's pretty straightforward then, it seems, right? Denmark and Egypt going through to the quarterfinals. That's also hopefully going to be a cracking game right at the end of the main round. Both teams could already have the quarterfinals in the bag, so they're facing each other with a bit less pressure than at the Olympics and at the World Championship 2 years ago. How do you feel? This has become like a bit of a modern classic rivalry based on that World Championship.
Yeah, I think that it's a great game for both of the team before the quarterfinals, because especially Denmark, they haven't been challenged yet. They might be against Croatia, but it's also important in these World Championship to get some good games against tough opponents before the knockout phase. So I think that it's a great game for both of them. I think it will be exciting to see the other group, the other main round. Who will they try to play against? If some of the teams would look at the other main round and then think, okay, maybe we'll get Sweden, maybe we'll get Portugal, Iceland. So it could be a very exciting game between Denmark and Egypt in order to see what they would like to face in the in the quarterfinals.
I don't think I need to remind you what happened last time Denmark tried to do that a year ago when they knocked Iceland out of the championship.
I don't remember.
And then got beat in the semi-final. So I don't know if lessons were learned from that or not. Whether they'll be looking at the. I mean, they do have the. Because they're going to be playing their games a day after the other group. Both teams can look at it and say, okay, maybe who do we want to face? I guess nobody wants to face Sweden at home in the quarterfinal. Whoever else comes through that group will be a tricky team, that's for sure. But I don't think anyone who's Swedish, Danish, or a tournament organizer wants to see those two teams in the quarterfinal already face off. It would be amazing, but maybe we can save it for later in the championship. Group 3, then, I think that feels a lot more wide open. There's so many different ways to look at it. Basically, you've got Norway, Germany on 4 points, Serbia and Netherlands on 2 at the moment. But it feels to me that all of these teams could take points off each other.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that the Netherlands, it will be interesting to see if they have the manpower, if they are getting tired or not. But on the day, they can beat almost every team in the world. The other 3 teams, they are level-wise very, very close, in my opinion. I'm very excited about the game between Norway and Serbia because, of course, it's a very, very important game. But I also think that Serbia, they have some of the things that could give a lot of problems also for Norway, for the Norwegian defense. And I think that maybe also now they have 2 very, very good goalkeepers. That's also very important for Serbia. And that could be a reason why they could get a good result against Norway. Germany have also been great, but I think that you're right. There's just a lot of good matches in that main round, and it will be very, very interesting. And I think that we will see some funny results also. Maybe one day some of the teams are just very, very good, and then the other day they just don't have the day. So it's very, very difficult to see who will go to the next to the knockout phase.
And when you look at all their top matches that they've had in the preliminary round as well, it's been very hot and cold within the match itself. Like Norway playing for the last 15 minutes, Germany played for 45 minutes and then took the foot off the gas. Serbia could have won it but didn't, and then the Dutch as well had an incredible first half but then kind of fade in the second half. So just on that alone, it breeds chaos, and I hope there's going to be a lot of chaos in this group because we might need it.
So what 2 teams do you think would you go for, Brian? Go through.
Oh God, it's actually really hard. I think I will probably say I fancy Norway. I think actually might stay the way it is. I think Norway and Germany.
What about you, Rasmus?
But
I also think that, but I don't think the Netherlands will go to the knockout round, but I think that Serbia is the dark horse, and I'm not so sure that Germany. I would say Serbia and Norway.
That's what I went for pre-championship.
Me too.
Now I'm not so sure. No, because Norway Serbia is first in the main round, which could be a real killer for Serbia if they lose it.
Good point.
It feels like the Netherlands Germany is on the 21st. Whoever wins that could be in a really good position, because the Dutch will already be up to 4 points, assuming they beat Qatar, and then I'm really looking forward to Netherlands Germany. I think that's going to be a really cracking game and a real test in a different way for the Germans, if they can, if this team can deal with the pains in the ass that Kai Smits and Luke Steins. I mean, they're used to Kai Smits from the Bundesliga, but Luke Steins is a special pain, as Brian, I think you alluded to on Twitter yesterday. So I have a good feeling about the Dutch after what we saw yesterday. They do have to use the squad a lot better, though. I mean, they do have other players in the backcourt who are playing Bundesliga level as well. So there's nothing there that should be oh, we can't trust you, Tom Janssen. He's playing every week against these German players. So I would like to see Serbia do it. But now I'm feeling a bit leaning more towards the Dutch. But let's see. That's a real cracking group. That's for sure.
Ideally, what we have on day one there, the Dutch and the Germans win, and Serbia beat Norway, and then we'll go into absolute meltdown for the second round matches. Then,
all right. Before we let you go, there's one more topic we want to bring up with you. Seeing as you're officially or unofficially a TV2 reporter, right? During this championship.
That's true. Yeah.
And Brian, you've been having some close and personal contact with TV2 reporters as well. The way I say it there, that sounds really dirty, but it's got nothing to do with that. It's got to do with the referees.
Yeah, I got sent this article that I think everyone in the handball community has seen at this stage now about the alleged match fixing by certain referees. So where are you standing with this now? Of course, for anyone who doesn't know, TV2 brought out an article where Sport Radar had produced this document which has led to a certain amount of matches being suspect to match fixing, and TV2 seemingly have more information to come out about this in the coming weeks. But as it stands at the moment, and their EHF's perspective on it would be that they were also, I think, handed this document, and they handed it over to the police, and the police then came to no conclusions or couldn't pin it down in any way. So as it stands at the moment, from the information that we have, EHF handed it over to the police. They couldn't pin it down. EHF did their own investigations. They couldn't really come to any conclusions either. But the thing, or the smoking gun could be if there's more information to come. And that's my kind of very rough summary of what happened. And where are you standing with it at the moment? Of course, nobody wants this, but...
First of all, I have to be honest that I'm not surprised of it. It's so bad for handball, but of course it's just history that repeats itself. We have seen a lot of this stuff before. For me, the biggest problem is that this report, as it came in the beginning, wasn't revealed. Or they needed, the European Handball Federation, in my opinion, needed to tell the handball world that there was something going on. I don't think that they have to publish the report, but to tell that there have been some investigation related to this, because now it's 5-6 years ago, and you can't do much about it, I think. But I hope in the end that this will bring some thoughts about this and try to develop so as we don't see this in the future. I think that it's difficult to say some clever things about. First of all, I haven't seen the report in total, and it's just difficult. It's just a bad case for handball. For me, I'm just sad. I feel like it's difficult to do anything about it. So it's just bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I've thought about this as well in comparison to other sports with, how the investigation or can be proactive in a way, and looking at. I mean, there's one other sport where this is kind of very at the front at the moment. A very different sport, snooker, wherein there's match fixing and kind of spot fixing allegations going on in snooker, and 10 Chinese players have been suspended while it's happening. So that's a different approach where they're like, we have this investigation, kind of like what you suggested there. They're being open about the investigation as it's happening, and they're suspending the players in the meantime. That's very different to referees being involved, and there have been cases in the past where players have been accused of match fixing as well, with the Handballs Kanalen articles that came out last year. But I think in a wider case, it's so hard to prove these things because handball is such in comparison to snooker, for example, where it's all technical, everything that's supposed to happen. Where in handball, it's so chaotic and hectic. There's so much interpretation going on, and there's so much whataboutery, I think, in handball as well, because every time a team loses a big game, depending on what part of the world they're from, a day later, there's a 10-minute video with all the mistakes the referee made, right? And that's kind of one of the things that I felt seeing these articles as well. It was like, here's a few examples of it, and it kind of going down the same route. So I think if there was some kind of proactivity with referees being suspended while it's going on, that could be a positive case. But then maybe 2 weeks later, a team gets a defeat where they feel like, there was something dodgy there, and then they ask, why aren't these referees being suspended? So it's so difficult, and I just I look forward to seeing what else comes from it, because I'm pretty sure Rasmus and Brian, you have been told there are more articles to come in this.
I hope that this maybe will result in that we give the referees better conditions in the future. I think that's maybe the most important thing. We need full-time referees, in my opinion. We don't have that in Denmark. We don't have that in most part of Europe. I think that some of the referees in Germany and in France are full-time, but we need to give the referees from the beginning of their career, they just need as good conditions as possible. We need to help them. Handball is such a difficult sport to be a referee in, and of course the money are not as great as in other sports. So that gives you maybe an idea on why some of the referees might have done something like this. I don't know, but I hope that this could be the beginning of better conditions for the referees in the future.
That's a really good point. When you, maybe not so many people also listening would understand that. You meet referees around the countries we're in, around the world, doing Champions League matches where it's guys who are teachers or running a business, and they need to be able to take like 2 days off work just to go to referee a Champions League match. And these are guys at the top level, or they're working all day remotely somewhere in a hotel, and then they have to go and take care of a top match. So yeah, that's a very good point. All right, then we'll leave it there for today. Rasmus Boysen, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully see you in Stockholm. But if we don't see you there, then there's a very good reason why. So take care, and see you soon.
Thank you. See you soon.
We're going to wrap up in just a moment, but before we do that, I had a chance to speak to Yehia El-Deraa after Egypt's last game in the preliminary round. Here's what he had to say.
Game you always expected to win, but it's very professional performance. Everyone in the team scored as well on the court, which is a nice thing to see. How did you approach this game, and how much did it go to plan for you?
Yeah, from the beginning we're taking it like step by step. We finished Croatia, we're on to the next to Morocco, and then USA. 3 important games, like to get all the team in the rhythm of the tournament and have the feeling of the game, and like, okay, each game you have a plan or a certain strategy. You like check the list that you achieved, and we see how we play together. You try to rotate, you try all the players to engage together, have the chemistry and the bond. I think it's better than training, but just to have with players that don't know you and they don't know your tactics, and you react and you reflect on the game. So I think we've been doing good in the group stage, but like from this point, the real tournament starts, and the big dream is starting right now. We're going to the main round. We'll see who are we going to play against, and we're going to be ready for sure.
You had your toughest game in the opening game. So professionally done, looking really powerful against Croatia there. Was it then just a case, as you said, of like developing the chemistry a little bit, trying out new things?
Playing against Croatia in an opening game in the World Cup, it's like the first time for all of us maybe to like have the first game to be the most important game in the World Cup. Like it's gonna decide which you're ranking in the group stage and then the points that you're gonna have. So we were well focused for this game. We studied and we prepared well, and we had all the motivation in the world just to win this game. In the end, the performance, of course, we didn't know that we're going to perform that well, but thankfully we did what we had to do as a team together just to win the game.
And in the last couple of years at a world level, people have come to expect a lot more from Egypt because of your performances at the home championship 2 years ago, at the Olympics last year. But with Yehia getting injured before the tournament, that seemed to, in a lot of people's eyes, kill the expectations, but not for you guys, it seems.
Yeah, okay, Yehia is like one of the best right backs in the world, and he's like our key player. Maybe he's the top player in our team. So for sure it's bad, but in the end we're sharing his dream. His dream is ours, and we're fighting for him. We're fighting for our dream that we started 4 years ago, as you said. People are putting a lot of expectations on us, and they are preparing much more, and they're respecting us more. So that's why we have to be aware of this, to be well prepared and be mentally focused and have mental strength until the end of the tournament. As I said, like, okay, it's an era. You have like very good players, well-educated players, and they accept the fact that they have to learn and keep learning, and we have a certain style to keep playing. We're not Denmark, we're not France. In the end, we want to win, and we have a mission to do, and we're getting closer. One day it will come for sure. In the end, it's sports. We're enjoying the game, we're enjoying playing together, and we fight until the end.
And in the main round group, it looks like it's going to be Bahrain and Belgium, but of course the big one will be Denmark. That game 2 years ago, the World Championship, was one of the most remarkable, memorable games of all time. You had a quasi, not quite a home crowd with the regulations back then. You're going to be facing Denmark in what is basically going to be a home game for them as well. How much are you looking forward to that?
Yeah, actually first, like, we have to be smart, we have to think and respect all the teams that we're going to play. We're going to play against Belgium, then Bahrain, and we have to finish these 2 steps, then prepare to Denmark. For sure, Denmark, they have all the respect in the world. They're one of the best teams in the world. They proved that many times. Our game against Denmark, it became something special every time we play against each other. We played in the Olympics, and now we play against each other. So, okay, we can speak a lot about this game, but we have really important 2 games before we reach Denmark. So until we finish these 2 games, then we see what's going to happen against Denmark. So for sure they have our respect, and for sure we're going to prepare well to have a good game against them, and then we see how it ends.
Do you feel there's something different in the team now in between the matches over the last couple, or in comparison to the last couple of years? Because you're in these situations over and over again. But do you feel when you're talking amongst each other, when you're talking with the coaching staff, is there a bit of a different vibe about the team?
The positive thing that every year you're sending one player to play in Europe to develop and have the progress and get the exposure over there. So he comes back, he shares his experience with the team. So you have you're heavier. Your team is like much more experienced with a lot of thoughts and a lot of strategies. So we try to combine all of this, and year after year with Roberto, we have the confidence, and we gain the knowledge that he has, and he's trying to send this to us to understand the game, to understand ourselves, how we are going to be better and how we can win with our plays, with our style. So it's changing, it's developing as we see. As I told you, like each tournament, 2-3 players new are introduced and are more engaged, and even the experienced players, they become better and they become craving more and more. So I think we're in a good pace, and we have to act smart, as I said about it. So I'm thankful for this 4 years. It's a build-up and it's a step by step. So every year, the most important thing that we're better than the year before. Yeah. In the end, the result, what happens, happens. Winning is winning, losing is losing. It's sports. But if we're better than the year before, so we're successful.
Well, beautifully said. And you're one of the players, you said the guys going to Europe. You're one who went back to Europe this year with Veszprém. How do you feel personally that has helped you develop?
Actually, it's a privilege to be among this team. It's one of the top European teams. They are Final Four for the past years so many times. They still want to win, and they still want to achieve a lot of things. I'm playing with Yehia. I'm playing with legendary players in the team. The strength of the locker room and how the players are together, it's something I've learned, and I've seen how they love handball. So I've learned more from them. So being in this team, actually, it's an addition, and it's a life opportunity that I have to take. And I'm in progress for sure. I'm still adapting, and I'm still trying to be better and better. And I will fight for the team, and I will fight to do whatever we want to win this season.
Good man. Thank you, Yehia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yehia. And that is it. That's our preliminary round wrapped up, and a bit more. Brian, how are you feeling on the... well, now it's already starting today. It never stops.
Never stops. But I've really enjoyed it so far. It's been some crazy results, and I feel like there's certain main round groups in there, particularly Germany, Serbia, Netherlands group, which I think is going to be pretty wacky. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Overall, have you enjoyed yourself so far?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And I think that group you mentioned there, and also the group here in Gothenburg with Iceland, Portugal, Hungary, and Sweden, that's going to throw up a few wacky things as well. Yeah, particularly with Hungary in town, that's for sure. Before we wrap up, a few comments from those of you on our Patreon page as well. There's a question here from Hugo Megens asking also if it's the goal difference overall or teams facing each other, the mutual result that decides who goes through in the case of points being level. That's potentially very important here in the main round, and it is due to the mutual result. So not about overall goal difference. That's going to be key heading into the final days of the main round. Tim Detmar saying that Egypt and Denmark are locked for the quarterfinals. I think we agreed on that as well. Main round groups 2 and 3, as you said, Brian, looking very, very tasty. So I think we can wrap it up there. We'll be back on the weekend as well with a look at how things stand in the main round. But until then, it's goodbye.